Ace was the seventh child of a family consisting of 6 siblings and 2 parents. The siblings were mostly comprised of older brothers, with there be one older sister, leaving Ace as the sole member of his generation, with there being a generational gap of 8 years. Growing up, Ace did not have a lot of friends due to his standoffish personality and often stuck close to his father, whom he admired greatly. His father would teach him everything a young Hundin would need to know while in the wilds. At first, Ace was confused over the notion of having to learn about survival skills for the wilds when they simply lived in the prosperous city known as Yorleng and was provided with everything they could ever need. Ace remembered his father kneeling before him and placed both hands on his shoulder before telling him the importance of having these lifelong lessons in his arsenal of growth. You never know what will happen, son. So Ace began to learn the life of surviving in the wilds along with his father. His sire taught him everything: how to build shelter, what was safe to eat, and how to hunt for food, clean and prep it, cook, etc. He even learned how to fashion a short bow made from the surrounding woods. Each day, Ace was made to practice his aim with the bow made by his own hands. He was to do this until his aim was so perfect that he could hit his target from outside the normal range for short bows, showcasing the youth's skill. This impressed his father, who mentioned that the boy may have had a penchant or soul affinity for accuracy. To test this, his father then gave him a larger bow known as the longbow. This bow was made by his father himself and tailored to the boy, who took to it quickly, like a hungry fowl to a mother's tit. He was eager. Ace would train diligently with the bow. He trained his eyes to see further than he ever expected. It was like his vision was on zoom, having the ability to see every detail of what he focused on, how it breathed, its eyes, subtle movements, even the passing of wind brushing along its straw-like fur, ruffling the surface like little waves of alu. Ace was made for this. There would be plenty of times when he and his father would go out together, just the two of them, and hunt for game such as deer. During their hunts, Ace's father would always give him sound advice that would instill in the boy's mind. The way to the target is down the arrow itself. Take deep, long breaths and steady yourself. Let your mind go with no distractions away from your target in sight. Ace would listen to the words of his father, his stark yellow's eyes trained on his game. He could hear nothing but his own heartbeat and the slight sound of the quarry as it moved through the tall, dried grass of a small open field. When was sure that he had the mark, Ace released the notched bow. He watched as the arrow flew from his hold and pierced through the air with all the speed of a bullet. For him, it was like watching the spectacle in a slowed speed rate. He watched the wiggle of the bow just before release and shot forth. The arrow twisted and turned as it flew to the target. The arrowhead pierces into the hide of his prize and causes it to flee in terror. It wouldn't be long before the deer was dead from the shot to its main artery, that being its heart. Ace's father was pleased. It made him proud to see the youngest of his sons take on something so fast and so eagerly. From then on, Ace would become an official student of learning the wilds. Then came the outbreak of the miasma that would change the life of not just Ace, but many of those who lived in the city Yorleng as well. It happened out of the blue, a pandemic that ravaged the city and left thousands dead. Those that survived the miasma were left scarred with the after effects of illnesses such as chronic pain of the body, sickness of the stomach, and even rabies amongst the Hundin kin there, which made up the majority of the population. This not only affected the lives of the Kindle of Yorleng, but the Hundin as a race, which left them devastated and without home. In just a small matter of minutes, the city was shrouded in purple miasma, leaving no escape for those trapped inside. The Elkai officials did what they could to keep the city from going into total calamity. They flooded the city with their alu magica to clean away the dead and wash away the infected. Winds would keep the survivors inside and closed the entire city down from others entering the plagued area. Ace would never get to see the woods again, with the entire city locked down by the Elkai Dominion, and he would never have his life the same again. One by one, he lost his entire family to the outbreak, including his dear father. At only the age of 6, he was forced to roam the ruins of his home. During his trips through the city, he came across a hunting boy not much older than he. He had silver-colored spiky hair with ears and a tail that was also the same color. He was a very dirty-looking boy with clothes tattered like rags. From where he stood, he noticed that the boy was holding something in his hand. It was a bow. This intrigued Ace, and he watched the boy for a moment as they struggled with the bow. He was having a hard time notching the arrow and keeping it steady to aim. But Ace couldn't watch any longer and made himself known to the silver-haired Hundin. He called out to the boy, who looked directly at him with such starkness in his own sullen eyes that he threw the otherwise stable youth off guard. He shook it off and wandered closer to the boy as he spoke. "What are you doing?" "I'm practicing with this bow. What's it look like?" "It looks like you're having a hard time with it." Ace shook his head but paused as he noticed what kind of bow the other boy was using and the make of it. It was exactly the same as the short bow he made for himself when starting out with his wild survival training. This did not offend Ace, who would then give the other boy some tips and pointers on how to properly use the bow. And just like that, a friendship was forged between he and the silver-hunted boy known as Maul. The two became fast friends in just a matter of minutes. This pleased Maul so much that he would introduce Ace to the rest of his family, which he called his crew or pack members. When meeting them, with Sai seeming like the cool older brother and him having a bit of a crush on Inqua herself. With Sai being a hunter of the wilderness himself, he would spend hours talking about bows with Ace, who was educated further on the many uses of bows. Apparently, it was Sai who found the bow and gave it to Maul to use so that he too could accompany him on his hunts for food. But rather the game being deer, it was other kin. Ace would spend the rest of his youth with the Sterling family he grew to love too much. Even after they had welcomed in a new member, a strange boy who Maul described to have come from the infectious waters. He later learned that the boy from the water was named Dirge, but didn't quite trust him. He had the eyes of a predator, something Ace grew up to learn and understand. They were wide and stared into the very soul if you were to look straight into them. It chilled Ace to the bone to look at Dirge most of the time, so he would avoid him as much as possible. It took the telling of Inqua for the pale blue boy to change how his eyes were perceived by others. Then Ace would begin to feel more comfortable around him. Being around the strange blue boy would bring the observation of just how different he seemed. He stood out greatly amongst the rest of the hunting crew, and Ace began to wonder of the tall boy's origin. He one day asked Dirge where he came from, to which Dirge would reply that he came from the waters. When Ace pressed the question more, bringing up the fact that he did not have hunting qualities like the rest of them, but Dirge would just stare at him with those wide eyes and blink. This irritated Ace to the point where he would simply drop the subject. Despite their living conditions, things have been looking up for the Sterling crew. So long as they stuck together, nothing seemed to stop them. Not even the ravenous rabies-infected Kindle that constantly threatened the lives of the survivors on a daily basis. This only strengthened their bond as a family and pack, and all seemed well for their otherwise bleak lives, until one day Maul would return from a hunting trip with his brother, only his brother was not with him. Something bad happened to Sai, and Maul was too traumatized to talk about it. Ace could see it in the eyes. The same eyes that had to watch each of his own family member slowly but surely succumb to the sickness of the miasma, one by one. But Maul would not speak of it to anyone, and neither of the kids dared to ask. Maul was stuck in his room with the lights out and muttering to himself, or was it someone else in there? The way Ace could hear him, it seemed as if he were talking to someone else in the room with him, with full conversation held. Something had to be done, but Ace would not get himself involved. As much as he liked Maul, he understood the meaning behind shutting himself off and keeping away from the world. He understood the heavy loss of a sibling, especially if it was someone you were close with. Surprisingly, it would take the consoling effort of Dirge to snap Maul out of his depressed stupor and brought him back into the fold with his crew. Despite their leader feeling better, he still often spoke to himself or someone that wasn't there as evident before all of their eyes. Ace began to pity Maul, thinking that the sudden loss of his older brother caused not only a broken heart, but a broken mentality as well. Thought of delusion came to mind whenever we would see Maul separate himself from the crew to sit on top of the abandoned building that they lived in to talk to himself. Ace would spy on Maul's doing whenever we could, just to keep him safe. He would often hear how their leader planned to breach into the city in the sky known as New Yorling and give his kind a better life. Of course, to Ace, this was more delusional talk from the otherwise rational Maul. But if there was one thing that Ace learned just from his observations of the silver hunting, was that he was never to be underestimated. Doing good on his word, Maul would find a way inside the Babylon city that was New Yorling and give the good life to his crew. While there, he advised that they find professions that would not only be beneficial to them, but provide them with steady income while living in the robust and ever-changing big city. Maul worked making jewelry. He learned how to fashion himself with the help of Metamagica. Dirge worked hard at what he wanted to do when it came down to his career. It would take him a whole month before he decided what he wanted to become. At first, he was slow to the idea of being a shoeshine boy, but the pale blue boy went on to become New Yorling's best barber in the branch of Silvix. Ace, with his keen eyes and sole affinity for accuracy, went on to become a tailor. Not only did we bring refreshing ideas of clothing to New Yorling's Kindle of both genders, but catered to male fashion. According to his patrons, the male side of good threads for males had not been the focus of the audience since the downfall of Yorling. He brought the concept of suits and ties, dress shirts with original-looking concept on them, and suspenders. Later down the line, he would introduce wool fabric and leather clothing, hoodies, jeans, and t-shirts and the like.